I remember the day so vividly. It was a normal Wednesday morning, and I was sitting in my first period class, waiting for the bell to ring. But then, the intercom crackled to life, and the principal's voice came on, urgently urging all students and staff to immediately lock their doors and turn off the lights. I could hear the fear in her voice, and it sent shivers down my spine. At first, I thought it was just a drill. We had practiced lockdowns before, although never with such urgency. But then, I heard the sound of gunshots echoing down the hallways, and my heart dropped into my stomach. This was real. I scrambled to lock the door and turn off the lights, my hands shaking with fear. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but I could feel my heart racing in my chest. My classmates were huddled together in the corner of the room, tears streaming down their faces as we all waited in silence. Time seemed to slow down as we waited for any updates from the principal or the police. We could still hear the sound of gunshots and screaming in the distance, and I felt sick to my stomach. It was like a nightmare come to life. Hours passed, and we were still in lockdown. My phone buzzed with notifications from concerned family and friends, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. I was too scared to move, too scared to even think about what was happening outside. Eventually, we heard a knock on the door, and my heart leapt into my throat. Was it the shooter? But then, we heard the voice of our school resource officer, and I felt a rush of relief flood through me. It was over. It turned out that a former student had come to the school with a gun, intent on causing harm. Thankfully, the police were able to apprehend him before anyone was hurt. But the terror of that day stayed with me for a long time. Every time we practiced a lockdown after that, my heart would race with fear, and I couldn't help but remember the sound of gunshots echoing down the hallway. It was a sobering reminder of just how fragile our sense of safety and security can be, and how important it is to always stay vigilant.
It was a regular day at school until the loudspeaker crackled to life and the principal's voice filled the air. Attention all students and staff, we are now in a lockdown. Panic set in as we scrambled to follow the lockdown procedures, rushing to lock the classroom door, turn off the lights and silence our phones. But as the minutes turned into hours, we realized this wasn't a drill. The darkness pressed in around us, broken only by the dim glow of the emergency lights. The silence was deafening, except for the sound of our own panicked breathing. We had no idea what was happening outside our locked door. Suddenly, we heard a noise coming from the hallway. It sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate. Then there was a low, guttural growl that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. My heart raced as I realized we were not alone. Something was out there, something dangerous and unpredictable. We huddled together, praying that the door would hold. The minutes turned into hours, and the darkness seemed to stretch on forever. I couldn't tell if it was day or night outside, if anyone was coming to save us, or if we were all alone in the building with a dangerous intruder. Finally, we heard the sound of footsteps again, this time accompanied by shouting. It was the SWAT team, coming to rescue us. We breathed a sigh of relief, but the terror of those long hours trapped in darkness stayed with me long after the lockdown was lifted. To this day, I still can't shake the feeling of being trapped and vulnerable, at the mercy of something sinister lurking just outside our door.
It started like any other day at school. I arrived early, chatted with my friends, and headed to my first class. But everything changed when the announcement came over the intercom. Lockdown. Lock all doors and stay in place. At first, we all thought it was a drill. But then we heard the pounding on the doors and windows. Something was out there, something that wanted to get in. The teachers did their best to calm us down, but I could see the fear in their eyes. I huddled under my desk, trying to make myself as small as possible. The sounds outside grew louder, and I could hear screams and crashes. I wanted to run, to escape, but I knew I had to stay put. Hours passed, and we were still in lockdown. I could hear the police and emergency responders outside, but they couldn't get in. Whatever was out there had us trapped. As the day dragged on, we learned that there was an active shooter on campus. I couldn't believe that this couldn't be happening to us. I prayed for the police to find the shooter, to end the nightmare. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we heard the all-clear announcement. The lockdown was over. We stumbled out of our classrooms, dazed and terrified. The halls were a mess, with broken windows and overturned furniture. It took days for me to feel safe again. I couldn't believe that something so horrific had happened in my own school. I still have nightmares about that day, and I'll never forget the fear and uncertainty of being trapped in a school lockdown.